Welcome to today's Dalton High School Data Overview presentation. Today we'll be focusing on the end-of-course test data for physical science. This presentation is taking place in November 2020. This presentation is intended for physical science teachers and school administration here at Dalton High School. And the purpose of this is to inform these teachers that teach physical science and the admin of the student performance based on different subgroups to identify areas of strengths, weaknesses by evaluating the last 3 years of data. So to start with, we're going to look at student enrollment over the last 3 years. So as you can see, in 2016-2017, we had a little over 1,900 students at 1931, and 2017-2018 we had a decrease in student enrollment at 1,895, and in 2018-2019 we had our highest increase in student enrollment for a total of 2,043. So student enrollment over the last 3 years, and we're looking at this by gender. So you can see that in 2018-2019, actually in every year we had more females, but in 2018-2019 we had that larger number because going back to the data, we had the largest number of student enrollment. So all across the 3 years, we do have more females than males. And looking at ethnicity and race with student enrollment. So at Dalton High School, we know that we are a majority a Hispanic population school, and that is consistent over the 3 years. Our next subgroup is a Caucasian or a white, with the number of students being in the 400s, almost 500s, and then looking at African American, and then multiracial and Asian Pacific Islander. So economically disadvantaged, we know that Dalton High School is a Title I school, so the number of students eligible for free and reduced lunch is pretty significant. If you look at 2016-2019, of our 1,931 students, 1,255 of them were eligible for free and reduced lunch. In 2017-2018, we had 1,232 students eligible out of our 1,895. And then in 2018-2019, 1,308 students were eligible for free and reduced lunch out of our total student enrollment of 2,043. So looking at limited English proficiency, so our English language learners, over a 3-year time span. In 2016 at Dalton High School, in 2016-2017, we had 135 students that had limited English proficiency. That went up in 2017-2018 at 171, and then in 2018-2019, we had a decrease from that previous year to 163 out of that 2,043, which had a higher student enrollment that year. And then looking at students with disabilities in terms of student enrollment, again, we're looking at the past 3 years. So in 2016-2017, we had 143 students with disabilities out of our total population. In 2017, we had 152, and then in 2018, we had 168. So now looking at the teachers and the support personnel at Dalton High School. In 2016-2017, we had 119 teachers and support personnel. In 2017 and 2018, we had an increase of 124 support personnel and teachers, and then we actually had a two-person decrease to 122, and that was the year that we had the highest population. So in breaking up the teachers and support personnel, we're going to look at this one by gender. So you can see across the board of all 3 years, there is a higher number of female teachers and support personnel than there are male. Looking at race and ethnicity, the majority of our teachers and support personnel at Dalton High School are white and Caucasian by a significant amount. Over 100 teachers across the board are white and Caucasian. The next race and ethnicity subgroup would be Hispanic, followed by Black and multiracial. Then we're going to look at years of experience of our teachers at Dalton High School. So if you look at the bottom of our x-axis, we're looking at the years of experience. We've got a lot of our teachers and support personnel at Dalton High School that's in between 11 and 20 years of experience. So that's showing that we bring a lot to the table, a lot of experience into what we offer for support for our students. All right, so now diving into the physical science EOC data. So this is looking at 2016-2017. We're looking at the achievement levels. So we have beginning level, learner levels, developing, proficient, and distinguished. So in 2016-2017 for physical science at Dalton High School, we had 42% students test and perform at the beginning level, and the state is at 32. So we had a larger number of students perform at the beginning level compared to the state. We also had a larger number of students perform at the developing level compared to the state, and proficient and distinguished. The biggest decrease here we can see, biggest gap in student achievement is at the proficient learner level. We had 2.2% students at Dalton High School perform at this level, and the state had 30.3%. In 2017-2018, we see that we're closing the gap a little bit compared to the previous year, where we had 14.2% of students perform at proficient level, and the state was at 31.4%. Still, though, for beginning and developing, we had a higher number of students perform at those levels as compared to the state, and then under compared for distinguished learners to that of the state. So for 2018-2019, the last year data we're going to look at, is you can see that this year we did a much better job of filling in that gap at the proficient level. While we still aren't at the state level, we are much, much closer than we were in 2016-2017. So we were at 31.8% of our students performed at this level, and the state was at 33.8%. We also did, we had less students perform at beginner, so we showed a lot of growth in that area. And so then looking at a time span, just kind of backing up and taking this from all 3 years and compiling this achievement data, we can see that once again, 2018-2019 of that year, we had more students perform at the proficient learner and the distinguished learner. We still do have a lot of students at the developing learner level. So the areas of weakness of looking at that data is, like we talked about, despite the progress that we have made, which is great, our students are still performing lower than the state average on the proficient learner level. And in 2016-2017, we only had those 2.2% of students at Dalton High School score at the proficient learner level, while the state population had a score of 30.3%. So still definitely a lot of areas to grow But in that, we can talk about the strengths. So compared to those previous years we looked at, in 2019, there was a significant increase in the number of students who achieve proficient learner level. So that is wonderful, wonderful news in terms of that area of strength. And from 2017 to 2019, the amount of students who achieved proficient learner level has changed from being almost 30% lower than that of the state to being only less than 5. So that is a wonderful area of strength. So in summary, we want to looking at the student achievement of physical science at Dalton High School is an area of academic improvement. Is we want to look at making an environment where students are more equipped to perform at the proficient and distinguished learner level. So we are making strides of improvement, especially looking at 2019 academic year, but we want to keep doing this and to keep growing in this field. So I want to leave with you today, after looking at the data that we've looked at, to think about, and in the courses and the work that we ask our students to do, what changes do you suggest be made to the physical science curriculum in order to improve our student achievement?